It says preparing to live stream, setting up. Can you let me know
Yep.
on texting once we go
Yeah.
live?
Yeah. It should be live now, but let me just double check for you and I'll text.
It says preparing to live stream, setting up. Can you let All right, I'm gonna let everybody in.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Greetings. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Apologies for the short delay. We were working out some sound details, but we are here. We are live. I'm Petra Richterova, the
Thanks,
founding director of the Institute. Those of you that are here, please mute yourselves so that we can proceed straight to the presentations. But this is the Robert Ferris Thompson Maroon Institute for Afro-diasporic Arts. It is our third salon, and we are honored to present our co-director or my co-director of the Institute, Professor C. Daniel Dawson today, along with master drummer Adam Rudolph. And let's get right into it. The format is going to be two presentations following each other, then a dialogue between the two guests, and we will open it up to the Q&A, welcoming the senior advisor for the Institute, Dr. Henry Druhl, to offer his remarks as is becoming a tradition now. And those of you that are in the Zoom, we will also invite you to participate in the Q&A at the end of the session. But remember to think about your questions and to engage our speakers today. And you're welcome to, as you go, also, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we can go back so that we can keep track of it. But let me open this up. So Africanist scholar and photographer C. Daniel Dawson explores Afro-diasporic cosmologies, sacred performance, and embodied memory through the lens of national musics in the Americas, such as Bomba, Rumba, Samba, Mambo, Cumbia, and Tango. Mambo, meaning important issue or problem in the original Congo context, reveals the African origin of these traditions. Composer and master percussionist Adam Rudolph, renowned for his expansive knowledge of rhythm and sonic histories across cultures, responds by reflecting on creative philosophy, musical transmission, bebop syntax, signal rhythms, and sonic mandalas. Together, they examine how mentorship structures and rhythmic systems circulate across cultures and epochs, functioning as vehicles of knowledge, memory, and transformation. And Professor Dawson, you are
Well, thank you, Petra. Thank you.
first. Yes.
I'll be happy to start, but let me see if I can share my screen. Yep. Hopefully this is the right screen. Again, this is
Yes, we're good to go. Yes.
okay. The talk is Widi Mambo, Listen to the Important Matter. And that's Enrique Hernandez from La Jata, Guanabacoa in Cuba, who's singing Apollo Mambo, Apollo's song. A mambo is a song from Apollo, but it also means in Congo an important matter. I also want to dedicate this talk to Anani Dizenyu and to Marta Moreno Vega and to Robert Ferris Thompson, who made it possible. Both of them made this talk possible. I came across all these musics because I worked at the Caribbean Culture Center with Marta for a long time, and we did concerts with people from all over the planet, but particularly people from the African diaspora doing music. So again, and this is really, it's really wonderful that Henry's on the line, because Henry came up with a saying. He tells me I came up with a saying, but he came up with the saying. It said Africans came empty-handed, not empty-headed. So when you think about the Americas, you think about the contributions of Africans. And this is also a redemption of African culture in the Americas. Because African culture in the Americas is formative. It's not some aside. It's where you get your national identities. In the Americas, nobody, when they talk about the Americas, the national music of the Americas, they're not talking about European models. They're talking about what Africans created in the Americas. So we'll start with, let me see this, if it goes, nope. Trying to see if I can get this to move. Okay. I'm not going to read all that. Ismael Rivera, he's from Puerto Rico, but he and Rafael Cortijo, they were ones who took the popular music of Puerto Rico, which is bomba and plena, and made it more like salsa, made it for an audience the same way that salsa was recorded and salsa was presented. They did the same with bomba, because bomba was seen as a kind of more roots music that wasn't important for the rest of the world. They decided to share the roots music of Puerto Rico with the rest of the world. Again, you can read along with me. There's a text to go along with that. Bomba musician in Puerto Rico. But bomba is interesting because bomba comes from a Kikongo word, which means to console, to exhort, to persuade, and it also means secret or mysterious. And there are 6 major types of bomba. The other form of popular music is bomba, and then there's plena. And plena was brought by one family to Puerto Rico from St. Kitts. But I can give you some examples. I think I have musical examples. And one of the important things to understand about bomba and plena is that they are musical newspapers. They're one of the kind of standard African contributions in musical philosophy in the Americas is percussive dominance with social commentary. And so you end up with people using a particular rhythm to talk about their lives, to talk about with social commentary. The family Cepeda, one of the great bomba groups from Puerto Rico. There are 2 major families in Puerto Rico for bomba. One is the Cepeda family, the other is the Ayala family. Los Pleneros de la 21, they're people who helped revive bomba, and they did a lot of it from New York City. It was started by Wango Gutierrez, and I think Alex Lasalle, who was one of the major revivers of bomba, also worked with them. I don't know if I have a musical example. No, I don't. Let me see. But there's a group from New York City, founded by Alexander Lasalle, and he's actually the principal person who revived bomba, because he started talking about the African roots of bomba, and he did research with Foucault and with many other people, talking about the words all associated with bomba are Kikongo words. So you end up with an incredible, deeper understanding of where bomba comes from. I can play a little bit of Amamoya's music. Trying to find.
Ay dibudín, dibudán, la campana suena ahora. Ay dibudín, dibudán, y anuncia la mariangola. Ay dibudín, dibudán, la campana suena ahora. Ay dibudín, dibudán, se formó la mariangola. Ay dibudín, dibudán, ay la campana suena ahora. Ay dibudín, dibudán, se acabó la zafra ahora. Ay dibudín, dibudán.
I think one of the important things to understand too is that many of the musics in the Americas actually have a Central African origin. You know, because of the kind of slave trafficking, that you end up with the formation of popular cultures in the Americas where the dominant African population was Central African. So you have a lot of Kikongo things. And this is Dominican Republic with the Confederación de Espíritu Santo. It's Los Congos de Villa Maya. They call themselves Congos. And in fact, I was talking to Alex's wife, Manuela, and Manuela mentioned that, because I said, you know, there's Congos of Villa Maya. She said, you know, almost every area has a group called the Congos. So it could be Congos of Villa Maya, it could be Congos of any other part of the island. And this is actually a performance done by Claudius Fortunato and his Gedes, which is really, it's really beautiful to understand the density of African culture. His Claudio Fortunato, a Spanish name, he's two Gedes. Gedes are Dahomian ancestral spirits, but he's actually coming from Haiti. So it's a Spanish-speaking group doing with his performance called Gedes, But also they're doing a thing with a spirit. This kind of spiritism comes from the Congo. And this spirit is called Candelo. You can see the red cloth around his head, around his neck. It's talking about he's Congolese. But he's called Candelo Viejo or Candelo Congo. So you're looking at a kind of density of African cultures coming together just in one place in Dominican Republic. Gumbi drumming from Haiti, from Jamaica. This is from a ceremony celebrating culture, one of the Maroon leaders. What's really interesting about this particular drum, it goes from Jamaica. Actually, it comes from Central Africa, goes to Jamaica. It's picked up by Akan Maroons, even though it's Central African. It goes to Nova Scotia, then it goes back to Africa. So you end up with this drum in other parts of Africa, originating in Central Africa, but going to other parts of West Africa. A Congo bongo man, Robert Nesta Marley. Oops. Now, one of the interesting things about Rastafarian drumming is they say they call it Nyabingi drumming, but it's really based on two older Congo forms. It's based on Kumina drumming, a secular Kumina, and Buru drumming. Ken Bilby has written a lot about this. So even though they're talking about Rastafarianism, the root of their rhythm is coming from Congo. Another one, children from Barlovento in Venezuela, playing Cuyo y Puya drums. Barlovento is also a Maroon society in Venezuela. Thought I had music for that. Oh, there it is. I'm having trouble finding the music. That kind of yodeling is influenced by the pygmies also. Much of the music in the Americas with that yodeling sound is coming from Central African pygmies, so-called pygmies. The similar drumming form in Central Africa, as you saw in Venezuela. I'm running now because I'm running out of time also, so we're trying to get through a lot of these. The woman on the right is Graciela Salgado Valdez. She was recognized as part of the cultural heritage of Colombia. She comes from Barlovento, one of the famous Maroon societies in Colombia. A lot of the musics come out of areas where you have Maroon societies.
Danny, please take your time. We are gathered here.
I'm sorry, I'm racing now.
You are racing. I'm trying to take notes. I can't keep up.
Okay.
Take your time.
Again, I want you to listen to a lot of different things. Listen to the yodeling sound that you find in a lot of these musics. It's again Central African influenced by the pygmies, so-called pygmies, the Aka, the Twa, the Baka.
Señora Juana María, la que vive en el copete. Póngale cuidado a su hija, que ella ronca canalete. Póngale cuidado a su hija, que ella ronca canalete. Ay, 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 que ella ronca.
This is the same group, again, with a master marimba player. That marimba is shared with Ecuador and Colombia, and Pacific Colombia.
Aguacerito llove, oh, oh, y ve aguacerito. aguacerito llove, oh, hoy ve aguacerito llove. Allá arriba en aquel alto, oh.
A group from is Don Amador Bambroso in El Carmen, Peru, a black community in Peru, and it's recorded by Ricardo Lori Salcedo. And if you notice that both the mother and the son are standing in front of cajones, or cajas, but there's a difference between the Cuban caja and the Peruvian one. Peruvian one has a flap, so it gives you a buzz tone. And that's the one that was picked up by the gypsies in Spain too. So it's really interesting to see that happen. Black Peru, Susana Baca singing a Peruvian song. Landu is the African-based music of Peru. We moved to Brazil, probably the most densely populated with African cultural elements in the music. Every state in Brazil has its own cultural form, its own musical form too. These are banda de Congos from San Benedito. But look at the Congo-based instruments in it. The scraper that becomes the heco, called the heco or the ganza in Brazil, but it's also the guido in Latin music in the Caribbean. But again, a Central African musical instrument. But this is called banda de Congos. One of the old tocadores de Congo. You see how they're sitting on the drum? The same way that people do bomba, and same way they do the old merengue. They sit on the drum like that and change the pitch with the heel of the drum. One of the earliest forms, again, you can see in earliest. This is a painting from 1800, was doing capoeira, but sitting on the drum in that same way. But again, tons of musical forms that are associated with this. An old painting from Brazil from 1816, The Old Man and His Ori Congo by Baptiste Debré. But look at the man. The man is playing, on the left, the man, can you see my cursor? The man is playing a sanza or a ganza, but he also has a haircut like this. The haircut is telling you something. The haircut is not a throwaway. The haircut is saying, I am from Angola and I know it. Now he's playing a sanza. The sanza disappears in Brazil, but the sensibility of the sanza goes into Brazilian guitar lines. If you listen to Central African sanza or mbira music, you hear Brazilian guitar lines. He's playing the berimbau, the ori Congo, another word for it. But also look at how the culture is influenced. This is 1816. Look at the boy's hat. You know, the kind of simple ways that African ideas about styling, self-styling comes into play. So this is not New York. This is not the 1930s in the Lower East Side or Hell's Kitchen. This is Brazil in 1816, you know. So it's a hip-hop hat style in 1816. Capoeira, another musical form from Brazil. African-based. Oops. I'm trying to find the music associated with these. The three people in this area, Mestre Moraes, Mestre Jagrandi, and Mestre Cobrinha, they're the three people most important for the revival of capoeira Angola in the world. Again, it's set up for capoeira with instruments from Africa. This is Brazil, but it's also, all these instruments are basically African. This pandero, or as we could say, tambourine, it may well be have some kind of Portuguese roots too, but the rest of them are all straight African musical instruments. Again, samba, the most famous music of Brazil. Samba is a key Kongo word. The most famous instrument of samba is the cuica, I'm having trouble moving this cursor to find the musical forms.
Ela não gosta de mim, ela não gosta de mim, ela não gosta de mim porque...
The original cuica from Brazil is here. You can see the friction drum, the stick that he's pulling. Again, let me go back, I'll just show you what it is. This is a friction drum. Inside his hand, he has his hand on the stick. He's pulling the stick that this is attached to. And it's giving you that change in pitch. One of the older forms from Espírito Santo in Brazil, and one of the original forms from Angola. It's Amelia Kakinda playing the strict. Again, you can see her hand is inside the drum where she's pulling on the stick that changes the pitch. Again, this is a Bapendi musical group with musical instruments. It's a photograph that Chuck Davis gave me. And you can see that he's playing a double-headed gong, called Igongi then, the cuica, the puita, the kimfuita, the Central African friction drum, playing a frame drum that becomes a caja, the cajon, with rattles on his wrist. The scraper that becomes the gazo or the heko or the guido, the berimbau. Now this is like proto-Brazil in just one Central African group with all these different African models. I'm going to run through these real quickly because I have like 5 minutes left, but this is music from Bolivia. Bolivia has an Afro population, and they created a music called, this again, you can see, this is Juan Angola Maconde. The music is called Saya. And it's confused because you see the music being performed by Indians in Bolivia, but you had no idea that it was originally created by Africans in Bolivia. A grouping of people, of Yungueros, in an ancestral presentation to celebrating their own music, La Saya. Tango. Tango is really interesting too because tango comes out of all these other different models of music. It comes out of habanera, a rhythm from Havana. It comes from a dance called Kanyenge. It comes out of candombe, and it comes out of milonga. All different Central African models for music. This is an old card that was making fun of Africans who created tango. Another one. One of the most famous creator for tango was Gabino Ezeza. He created over 500 compositions that went into tangos too. And it's really funny because people forget Buenos Aires had a huge African population. In the 1800s, they had 19 Afro-Argentine newspapers. Who were they for? There's obviously a population of Afro-Argentines who were reading those magazines and reading those newspapers. Kelly and Facundo. Kelly is one of the Afro-Argentine dancers of tango. This is Kelly and Facundo Posada in a restaurant in Buenos Aires. Candombe is another musical form. It's a musical form that's both Argentina and in Uruguay. One of the most famous painters of candombe is Ruben Gayosa. What's funny because candombe and candomblé is the same word. It's just used in different contexts, but it basically means ancestral veneration. A famous candombe drummer from Uruguay. And I think I'll just close with Rumba, with Roberto Burrell and Gina Oyedele dancing Yambu. Yambu is D-Y-A-M-B-U in the Congo. And it's the singular of the word Mambo, which is the plural. As Mambo means important matter, important thing. Felipe Garcia Villamil, he was a priest from Matanzas, Cuba, but he was also a master musician. Playing bata. This is not Felipe singing. This is Mimini. And this is Enriquito. I will close with Enriquito singing a mambo. That's Enriquito's son playing at a feature of Yimbula, and a photograph by David Brown. Again, so much of the culture in the Americas is actually Congolese. For instance, he is playing a drum, which becomes the Congo drum in the United States and in the Americas. He's playing with a resin on the head of the drum, a tuning resin. In Cuba, that tuning resin is called dimbu. In the Congo, it's called ndimbu. So it's the exact same tuning resin used in that. But again, I think I will end with a slide so we can go back to a normal discussion.
Thank you, Danny.
I'm sorry it was so rushed, to try and get it done.
Oh, we're blessed to have you. Thank you so much. And without further ado, we will just go directly to Adam Rudolph's presentation. And then again, we'll have you and Adam dialogue before we open up to the Q&A that will be spearheaded by Henry Jewell. All right. So Adam, we are all yours.
Here, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you recorded that. Danny dropped so much incredible. I'm gonna go back. He covered a lot, right?
High speed knowledge.
Yes. So let me. I'm gonna go straight to share my screen, and hopefully we're gonna. Petra, before I start, I'm gonna ask you, because I can't see everybody when I'm rolling. That if you don't hear the music, say so. Speak up.
Got it.
Okay, because I won't really know. All right. So.
Got you.
All right. So here we go. Hopefully we're going to work here. We're all technically. It's a little. Okay. And did I share?
Did you?
I see. Hold it. Okay. Now wait. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay. There's a few steps. Okay.
There we go. We got it.
Go. Beautiful. So anyway, I thought it would be appropriate to start with this beautiful Lemba proverb from Bunseki Fukuyao, who, of course, I met through Danny. I also met Bob Thompson through Danny, and I would even anyway, I felt like it just feels appropriate. There's something about all the scholarship that revolves around and the artistic impact of Bob Thompson that just merely a traveler on the cosmic path. And just, I think we could talk about that more actually later, but to me, it means something about being awakened as a human in our humanity, about enthusiasm in life, right? And love. Anyway, I'm just gonna give a quick, some of you know me, some of you don't, but just to try and do a pretty quick bio. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago in an area called Hyde Park. And my father took me to hear all kinds of music. He was a music lover: Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Stan Getz, Mongo Santa Maria, Max Roach, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And by the 70s, late 60s and early 70s, I was exploring on my own, taking the bus to the Checkerboard Lounge to hear Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and Buddy Guy and Hound Dog Taylor. And then I was also going out to hear the Art Ensemble of Chicago, Air Trio, Muhal, Richard Abrams. They were my neighbors. Steve McCall lived a few doors down. So this was the environment, and Hyde Park was pretty special at that time. It was, to me, it was almost like the Montmartre of, there was a magical time. That's when a lot of the AACM was, a lot of music was being born, and sort of the high point of these great blues artists. I myself, I started composing piano when I was 9 years old, creating music. And then by the time I was 14, I was going out there playing in the parks and learning hand drums. And the drummers, you hang out, and the drummers, the elders, they eventually let me play. And I don't know, I had sort of a gift for it, I could say. But right from the get-go, being in that kind of creative environment, my intuition, even though I was studying and spent years trying to study everything I could learn about hand drum traditions, especially from the African-diasporic tradition, djembe and Afro-Cuban, Afro-Haitian. But right from the get-go, I had an intuition that I wanted to develop my own language to play the music that I was being exposed to in my environment on the hand drums. So let me see if I can get to another slide here. This is an oral tradition, right? And I developed in music before there were jazz schools or anything like that. So it was all about mentors. The mentors are usually, it's not like on the same instrument. You're in their bands. So by the time I was 16, I was playing professionally around with a great artist named Malawi Nuruddin, Fred Anderson. Let's see if I go to the next one. Oh, wait, sorry, I skipped one. And then through a bunch of serendipity, I don't have time to go into now, I also really came up developing a lot in Detroit. And I had my Detroit mentors, especially Charles Moore, the great trumpet player. And you can see me there over on the left. Little 17-year-old trying to keep up. They put me in it was trial by fire. I just have to go back for a second and just mention about Malawi. Malawi was what we called, I made the record with him when I was 17 also. He was what we called tough love, I would say, and Fred was more like play what you hear. He never said anything. By 1978, Don Cherry brought me to Europe on tour for the first time. Important mentors. I played with many great artists. I mean, you learn from everybody, your peers, your elders, your youngers. But important, these are very important mentors. Pharaoh Sanders I worked with for years, and Big Black really opened me up to the whole idea of developing.
Oh, right here.
What's that? Hello?
Nothing. It was somebody who wasn't muted.
Okay. So, all right. Of course, Yusuf I met in 1988, and I toured with for up until really till he was pretty close to his passing at 92. So we spent 25 years together doing all kinds of collaborations. He was my most important mentor, I think, in life and in music. So in 1977, a very important thing for me, I moved to Ghana, West Africa, a young kid, got a one-way ticket, and traveled, lived there, got involved with Brekete. There's my teacher, Do, master Brekete drummer. If those of you who don't know, the Brekete is a form of trance ceremonies, very powerful. And then I had the great opportunity to go, I took myself up to the Dogon, and there's some anthematic pics from that time. I think what was important, I did spend some time learning some drumming, but what the real study was sort of the livingness. It kind of opened me up to the idea of there were broader, deeper fundamentals about music, that music comes from something greater than music. It even made me question the idea of the word music, which is another interesting thing to talk about. But music is what we call music is about something more than music. It passes through music, and it also is about something greater than music. Lo and behold, I come back to when I moved to New York. I was so lucky to meet Daniel Dawson, Danny, and I consider him a really important mentor also in a different way, in the sense that by the time I got here, I was fairly developed in my musical evolution, although it continues to evolve. But Danny opened me up to so much about with books and meeting Fukiao and many of you, and of course Bob Thompson, Robert Ferris. But anyway, I love this quote, paraphrase: "African philosophy is a lived philosophy," and that's exactly what I've been carrying with me. And then, of course, the music we play, so-called jazz, I don't use that word, but it resonates, right? I mean, this quote from Charlie Parker, he's saying the same thing in another way, right? Music is your own experience, your own thoughts, your wisdom. If you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn. They teach you there's a boundary line to music, but man, there's no boundary line to art. These are the kinds of things I've been reflecting on for many years. Duke Ellington said, "It's better to be a number one yourself than a number two someone else." And that's certainly true in music and, hey, life too, right? The Dogon people, I discovered, have a word called mi. I think I'm pronouncing it, M-I, which means the inner spirit of the person expressed through the voice of the instrument, right? This is saying the same thing, right? Yusuf Lateef, my mentor, he always used to say, the tradition is to sound like yourself. So we're talking about the same kind of thing. Here's a picture, one of my all-time, what a great picture, right? So this is with what I call the great elders. This was at the NEA Jazz Masters. There's Muhal Richard Abrams on the left, who it kind of represents all my schools that I came up with. The Chicago school represented by Muhal Richard Abrams, Ornette, my mentorship years with Don Cherry, and then of course Yusuf. And it's amazing, I got to perform with them all. Yusuf with Muhal several times, with Ornette up at his loft, and of course my 25 years. I just want to stop and say something about mentorship and the elders and what I call oral tradition. It's not about, to me, it's about transmission, right? It's not about information. I mean, there is information, but the oral tradition is about transmission. What is that? Creative attitude, a spiritual attitude. It's not what they do. I always think about it, but it's how they do, right? And it's why they do. I think when you get into the why, you get into the mysticism, the ontology of it all. So for me, the transmission, I think there's so much I gleaned from being around them. I was fortunate to be able to be around these masters and also have the knowledge to that's where I should be hanging out and be receptive. So a couple things I like to say is, number one, the courage, what I gleaned from them, the courage to be yourself, follow what you hear. In other words, what I like to say is you paint the bullseye and paint the arrow around it. What I learned from them, particularly use of studiousness, a long time studiousness, a lifetime of study, and the humility to remain open, right? In the long term, right? You have to have a certain kind of humility, and the cultivation of imagination, the cultivation of intuition. So I'm going to share this video. Petra's going to let me know if it's not. This is a video me go back to the picture while I just talk about it, so you have to look at a black screen. Because there's a couple things I want to say about this video. This is the duet of Yusuf and I, recorded, I think, in 2011 or 2012, one of our last duet concerts. We did a lot of very different kinds of ensembles, co-composed a lot together. But here is something. So I want to say a couple things I want you to notice while you're listening to this short example of us playing together. One, he's 92, so that's worth the price of admission right there. Number two is we're playing what I call bebop syntax. And through my relationship and learning from meeting Big Black, he opened me up to the idea of bebop syntax on the hand drums. But we're playing an abstraction of bebop. And of course, you always have to abstract from something. So you can see the development of the language of what I'm doing with the hand drums that's distinct and reflecting my experience growing up in Chicago, that's distinct from all of the music, the beautiful music that Danny shared previously, right? The things stay vital. You have to express your inner voice. So this is this abstracted bebop language. We're playing something called a dakpo, what we call the dakpo, which is dakpo are part of the Banda group of Central Africa. And again, you'll say, well, this doesn't sound like that if you ever heard Banda music, but we took it not in a literal sense, but as a spark point, a spark of inspiration, kind of inspirational movement of energetics. It's a way of us to opened us into a way of creating musical dialogue. And also the third thing I would say what's interesting is you can hear the way that we are dialoguing that way. It's not the Western concept of like, okay, the drums are laying down something and then the solos quarter on top of it. But it's actually more African in the sense that a lot of times you listen to West African music, you can hear the singing, the nature of the language is kind of laying down the groove sometimes. The drums are moving in a more abstract way relative, especially to the dance and the language. So fingers crossed, I'm going to try and play this video here and hopefully it'll play and hopefully you'll see it. Are you coming? All right. Let me try this button. Okay. So the joys of technology. Let me try one more time. It plays, but it seems like sometimes it takes a minute to play. Oh man, that'd be a drag. Okay. Nope. All right. It's funny, we did it in the sound check. Let me see if I hit this button. I could exit the full screen and play it. Maybe that would work, right? Oh, here we go.
Here it is. Here it
Can
is.
you hear it?
Yes, yes. Here we go.
Okay. So, let's see if we get, okay. Yeah, so that was, anyway, Yusuf did so many beautiful things. I was so inspired by him. He also encouraged me to write, I put together some books. This is the second one that I did, Sonic Elements. And anyway, I wanted to think about it, matrices, cosmograms, and ostinatos of circularity. So I want to just talk about that because there's a way, I wanted to transmit and share some ideas that I've been developing. So here, okay, so here, this is kind of I would call this the keynote slide in a way. So you see up there, there's a quote, Sly Stone, simplexity. I love that. So what does simplexity mean in a way? I think he was talking about that you move to, when you can move to simple elements, that you can then, the simplicity of elements, then you can weave them together in your own way. It's sort of a way, to me, it's a door to freedom. Another way of thinking about it is just what I'll read here. Just as the laws of physics simplify in the higher dimensions, so too do the elements of music unify as they transcend style and move towards essence. The essential unison, vibration manifests as a duality, color and motion, or as they are called in music terminology, timbre and rhythm. The dialogue between color and motion is woven through the complex of space and time. All color in music is based on the overtones, earth moving to air and beyond. So here we have it, little diagram, vibration manifesting as color, timbre, harmony, melody, and motion, which is rhythm, which manifests in three ways: language, danced motion, and mathematics. Now, in 99, I started a group, Go Organic Orchestra. So you could see that, like, for example, the duet of Yusuf and I playing, we didn't really need to talk about much what we were doing when we played this duet. That has to do with communication, empathy, a certain kind of sophistication and resonance that we had with each other. But I was always interested in the idea of how you could have orchestral music with a large ensemble. So that's when I started thinking about other ways of notating things. And this is where I came up with this idea of cosmograms. So the organic orchestra was sort of has been my project of trying to find ways to have a large ensemble with as much freedom as possible. And I realized that the notation, I wanted to develop an idea of notation that did not have linearity. Western music, you always read left to right. You got to read what you see. I wanted something there where the musician could project their own me, what we call the dogon, their own spirit into the sound of what's happening. So what I call them cosmograms, or nonlinear representations of organized intervallic potentialities. All right. They can be read in any direction. You can read up and down, left or right, backwards and forwards. So the musician can enter them in any way they want and move through them, bringing their own voice to it. It's very different than graphic notation, which tells you what to play. So as a kind of symbol, they become activated only when infused by the creative imagination and spirit that's manifest through the sound vibration of what the musician can bring to it. And one of my great moments was when Danny introduced me to Barbaro, I showed him these, and we started talking about, of course, the amazing cosmograms, the Kongo cosmograms. So another beautiful confirmation of my my kind of individual voice, I guess you could say. Now this is the triple. These are what are called triple. There's many different kinds of cosmograms. These are called triple diminished cosmograms. I'm not going to get technical, but I'll just say that I learned about triple diminished from Yusuf Latif. He told me he learned it from Don Bias. And those of you who don't know who Don Bias is, he's worth knowing about. And that's amazing, this kind of going back, this way of thinking. So these are a couple different ways. Here's another way of showing it. Here's one, and I'm hoping this music does this have music? No, I'm going to keep going. And another one. And this one here is called a triple diminished galaxy. And here I'm going to play some music. I hope. Is it going to play? Let me see. All right. Give me a second. Let me see. I think there's music with this one. Should be. Right. Okay, hold it. No, here. Okay. So if I hit this button, does anything happen? All right. Well.
Nothing yet. Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. Give me. Let me.
Take your time. Take your time.
I'm just going to cut that off. I think the time is moving along here, so I'm not going to play all
Take
the
your
music.
time, Adam. Take your time.
Well, that's all right. Anyway, well, another musical example here. All right, I won't play the whole example. It seems like it takes a second for the music to start. Okay, because I'm clicking on it. I don't have a little icon that I do when I'm not in this presentation mode. So, is it going to play? Or not. If I click on this, does it play? Oh, maybe, okay, I think I figured it out. Okay, so I love this quote apropos of using these, thinking about these intervals this way, just so also something that I'm not just off into my own world with, but Yusuf said to me, when you get rid of one thing, you have to replace it with something else. I know that's a quote applied to other things, but he was talking about there had been this tradition of using I Got Rhythm, Tin Pan Alley harmonic forms in improvised, what I call spontaneous composition music, jazz. But as you can see here with this Coltrane diagram, by the early 60s, Eric Dolphy, John Coltrane, Cecil Taylor, Ornette Coleman, Muhal, Yusuf, many others were replacing the Tin Pan Alley harmonic forms by developing systems of organizing intervals. So I started thinking about that and making these cosmograms, as I said, as sort of a non-linear way to share these ideas with the musicians I work with, and also for educational purposes of people. So these are examples of what I call double intervallic cosmograms, and each one being unique has its own intuitive architecture as I develop them. There's 15 of them in total, and there's a reason for that, but that's a musical. So yeah, just kind of zooming through these. All of these are combinations of any two intervals. And I just want to say at the end, this is the last one, that just a reminder, these are processes, and I'm sharing them. It's some kind of materialism I can share, but as always, when I work on composition or anything, all of these are processes. In the end, it has to serve the heart, the feeling, right? Okay. My first book was Pure Rhythm, and there's a reason why I made this particular cover. Max, I just want to mention, Max Roach talked about there was a separate, a parallel evolution in so-called jazz to the, everyone talks about the expansion of harmonic forms using brisker tempos, playing the higher intervals of the chords, etc. But there was also, Max Roach talked about the evolution of the drumming itself. And if you look at from Papa Joe Jones all the way to, let's say, Elvin Jones, you're going to see this incredible evolution. So this book was my attempt to share some of the things I discovered. There's no Western notation in it at all. It uses other ways. So at the core of everything for what I do compositionally and these concepts I'm talking about, it's very important. I want to just mention what I call the hand strikes the drum. And this is, in other words, when you touch the drum, it touches you. And for me, the core of everything I do is based upon that. This is the movement of what in Hinduism, for example, they call Nada Brahma.
Like really hot. You still warm? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that, Adam.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was addressed to me. So the Nada Brahma, the unstruck sound moving to Om. So when you strike the drum, that's sort of this sacred act of tuning, you're in touch with the skin of the animal, the spirit of the tree, right? The spirit of the animal and your own spirit, but it vibrates you when you vibrate it. So I just wanted to touch on that. This is what I would call also my second core slide. The Dogon, when I learned from the Dogon, they say every rhythm has two parts, often with a complex interplay that suggests both the dialogue and unison of female and male principles. Now they call the female principle Tolo, which can be called Yin, right, from the Chinese Taoist culture, Shakti from Hindu culture, and Nevaka from Kabbalah, Hebrew Kabbalah. The male energy, 3, which is 3 and odd, in the Dogon is called Nya, and which would be Yang in the Taoist culture, Shiva energy in the Hindu culture, and Zachar in the Kabbalist culture. So these things, that idea of this male and female and related to odd and even, this is the mathematical foundation. Now, I'm not ignoring language. So here is a signal, what I call signal rhythms. And if have the time, I wanted to kind of just mention something about what signal rhythms are, why I came up with the idea, because it was part of my many talks with Danny. Danny and I spent, I don't know, better part of a year when we saw this idea of clave, which in Cuba, right, Marx is played on claves. That if, of course, we all know that when you move through West Africa, Congo culture, Central Africa, Congo, that there is sort of this pattern, often a repeating pattern played on often a bell, but it can be many different kinds of things that is what the music, I would say, revolves around. Now, we were trying to find out, is there an overriding Bantu term that describes that functionality? And in fact, we discovered there probably is not, but that the way the language works, the word is related to the functionality of the instruments, like clave is played on claves, and or the ganko, the pattern is the name of, if you're playing on the Gankogwe and Ewe culture, if you're playing Egbekor, the pattern is called Egbekor. So I came up with the term. People who have been scholars of this have used the word timeline, and I dislike the word timeline intensely. Number one, it's talking about time, which is, we all know, the African and various cultural concepts of time is variable anyway, okay? And secondly, line, this music, it's not linear, it's not theme and development, it goes around. So I came up with the term signal rhythm. And as you can see, these are not notations for what people should play, but they're my idea of just the joy of creating what I call rhythm mandalas to represent them. Here's one in 15, and I think I'll play, just so you know, these aren't just abstract notions. I actually made the drawings after I composed a lot of different kinds of music that uses these in a lot of different ways. This is from a recording with my co-organic orchestra. So this is I created my own signal rhythms. This is not like the previous one in 12, which is what I call forgot to mention, I call the universal mother rhythm. And I don't really have time to talk as much about that as I'd like, but I started creating my own signal rhythms, and not every rhythm that you come up with qualifies to be a signal rhythm. You know, it has to have this right balance of the tolo nya, the male, female, and a groove, have a certain kind of feeling to it, which is my intuitive idea, and has to be able to adapt to any kind of aesthetic intentionality I want. Here's the one in 21, 3 sevens, right, against 7 triplets, which is the nya, the odd thing. I'll play a little bit of this. This is from this. I'm sorry, that's from my an opera. I just want to give you a context of it. An opera I wrote called The Dreamer, based upon the birth of tragedy. Here, so let me. Here's another way of doing a 21 beat cycle signal rhythm. This is from, I was commissioned in 2013 to write a string quartet and have never done that through Compose, but I'm kind of an autodidact. So this is the little excerpt. And those of you with your sharp ears experience will hear the influence of Bata concept of it, but it's moving through this 21 beat cycle, 5 + 7 + 9, moving against 3 triplets. I'm sorry, 7 triplets, of course. And now we move to what I call ostinatos. Are we okay for 5 more minutes, Petra?
Good for 5 more minutes.
All right, I'm getting there. These, I figured playing the music is gives the life to it. So we're moving into what I call ostinatos of circularity, and they're made by combining the signal rhythms or parts of a signal rhythm into larger cycles. So now we're moving into form, right? This is always what's of crucial interest to musicians in improvisational music. So the cyclic, the cyclic part, which is the circle moving, combining those with the polymetric, the vertical, you can see them stacked up at the bottom, and it creates an unlimited expansion of energy, actually. I do want to, I jumped over, I just want to mention that something I forgot to mention earlier, this whole idea of signal rhythms, that they are the original generators, or my source of inspiration is with also the forest people, the Aka, Baka, Babanzeli, and Buti. They're I think everything can be traced back to them that way. Anyway, so the structure can express itself in any kind of language that I choose, right? So here, you'll hear this is pretty different than the last one. Now, this is a piece called Return of the Magnificent Spirits that was either something I read Robert Forrest Thompson write or inspired by it. But anyway, Return of the Magnificent Spirits. So this is another vibe. Now, this is in a 33 beat cycle, which is 5 and 7 and 9, moving against the 11 triplets. But again, that doesn't matter. That's just for us to know. Here's another. This piece is in an ostinato of circularity in a 35 beat cycle. Actually, it's 105. Again, just noting that, but you can just hear a little bit of Again, it's a shape. It's tension and release. It's an inhalation and an exhalation. I'm going to cut that one short. I know we're moving in time here. This is I'll just play a little piece of this just to get a vibe of it. A 60 beat cycle, one of my favorites. If you think about it, why? Okay, 5 and 12. And here's one in a 63 beat cycle. And again, you know, it's just also with the orchestra, but this is the blues. If everybody, you can hear through, we always want to have the blues up in there. This is also with my Go Organic Orchestra. Thank you, Ralph Jones, one of my greatest longtime musical partners. So I just want to mention, you heard that was my Go Organic Orchestra. There's, I don't know, 7 or 8 percussionists. So one of my interests has always been like in this evolution of the drum tradition, and of course the drum set combining the trap drums, right? Group drumming into one drummer. But I always thought, well, why can't we have, let's make an expansion back into ensemble drumming. I mean, I love that, all of the African-diasporic and many parts of the world, group drumming. But rather than playing the traditional rhythms of those cultures, of the, you know, but let me create my own rhythm. So this is the last one I'm going to play of this cycle. This is in a 54 beat cycle. And this is with, yeah, so this is actually just recorded more recently. And one thing I like about this one, Danny pointed it out to me too when we were looking at it the other day, it's a spiral, right? And in fact, actually all of these mandalas are spirals, as is a mandala, because when you circle back to where you were, you're not really back to where you were, right? Because you're moving through time. Also, you're moving spatially. The space is moving through time. So you're always, actually every mandala is a spiral. So this is my last slide, and I put it, this is a cycle in 45. And I'm going to close, I'm going to play, that's moving in this cycle. I'm going to play a video that I hope is going to be a nice return. That's photographs of us playing this, with photographs from a concert that Danny took some beautiful photographs, and then I made a little short video of it. This piece is called Staticize, which also is, I think, maybe a Robert Ferris Thompson term, or maybe certainly inspired by him, that idea of verbiizing something. Anyway, so let me play this last video, hopefully. Let me see if I can do And the end. So let me see if I can get out in stop share.
Thank you so much, Adam. This was phenomenal, phenomenal.
No apologies for going too long.
Oh, come on. We are here for it. This is why we're here. So
Okay.
this was Widi Mambo by C. Daniel Dawson and Nzungi a Nzilla, Merely a Traveler on the Cosmic Path by Adam Rudolph. We all have a lot of questions. There are questions in the chat too, but I wanted to invite, just for a few moments, Adam, for you to talk with Danny, because you've been collaborating and kind of sharing ideas as well for such a long time. So please give us a glimpse into, your world.
Well, I
Danny,
feel tired of it. Yeah, Danny, you heard enough of my voice for a while. Right?
oh,
Yeah.
turn your mic on, Danny. I'm muting you. You're muted.
There you
There
go.
we go.
Anyway, Adam, thank you. For people actually think I'm a filmmaker, because of that. But also, I met Adam through Bob Wisdom, Robert Wisdom, who's an actor. He used to play the police chief on The Wire. So, but he was a good friend. He was a good friend of Adam. So he introduced me to Adam. Adam, we started talking about music and realized we had a lot of the same ideas too. But it was particularly about music we didn't like. It was not just didn't like, but thought was didn't fulfill its potential in terms of what music could do. And we shared a mutual friend to Ntume, who was also taught by Big Black. So they had a lot of chance to talk about music. But Adam's work has just been a revelation in the sense that everything he does, but it's a new version of it. It's his personal version of it, but it's what makes it right too. It's so funny. When I was in Brazil one time with Fouquier, he would translate a word from it was actually Kikongo used in Brazilian Portuguese, and everyone would understand that's exactly how they used it. Well, Adam's ideas are new, but when he explains them, you understand that's exactly what you've always been doing. So.
Well, that references back to the idea of oral tradition and mentorship. It's like I think Fukuyama, he one time he said something about standing on the shoulders, right? I mean, this idea, and the thing is that's the idea of working with the conceptual, the frameworks and the inspiration of it, the feeling of it. And Danny, what I said it in passing, but I didn't want to say Danny has been, I would say, my most important mentor in a way since I moved here, because he kind of like expanded. I mean, so many books that I've been exposed to, and meeting Fukuyama and Bob Thompson, getting to talk to them, meeting all of you, and kind of opened me up to really help me think about what I was doing in a broader framework and the connectedness of it. So it really changed and opened up my.
I just want to point out too that one of the major supporters of Fukuyama is here with us too, Ken Nunn, who was one of the major supporters of Fukuyama and helped get his work published. So.
Ah, okay.
So.
And I also wanted to give a special welcome to Kenneth Bilby, and what apropos time for him to join us when essentially you're both lecturing on topics that have to do deeply with Congo-based culture, right? Because so interesting, Adam, listening to the music and listening to you talk, because I just had a realization that hadn't dawned on me before, is how, again, to me, a non-musician, right, how the signal rhythms that you were sharing, because of the kind of interlocking nature, sound so similar to Bata, but I'm realizing that is so much alike the Hocketing that Professor Thompson discussed so much in his lectures about the Mbuti and about the nature of music in this fundamental way. And I'm just realizing, how deeply it's connected. And then listening to your music again and the way that you break it down, it started connecting with an Ornette Coleman or with Yusef Lateef, and all of these worlds started converging. So,
well, the Duke Ellington, right? Better to be a number one yourself than a number two somebody else. I mean, yeah, if I could have been reincarnated and been a Thelonious Monk's drummer, I would have been cool with that too, But that's not. There's a great. That's not me. Yusuf told me a great story once about when Lester Young took Coleman Hawkins' place in Fletcher Henderson's band, and they played him the recording of. They came to the hotel room and played him a recording of Coleman Hawkins on this piece of music, and Fletcher and Lester Young said, "But that's not me." I mean, every generation has a responsibility to Mtume. Danny mentioned Mtume. Mtume always used to say the imperative for us in this music is to push the boundaries. All these doors that have been opened for us, you have to have, that's what I'm saying about what they showed, courage, and imagination. If you can hear it, you can do it, but you have to have the courage to do it, to continue to be studious. So yeah, everything is rooted. Everything's based upon everything else. I talked a lot, about the mathematical, this Tolo Nya, which you're relating to, what Bob Thompson, this 3 and 2, this male female is this essential duality, right? So the Dogon proverb, every rhythm is a marriage and an interplay between male and female energies. You're always going to hear that. That's a universal. That's the mathematical part of it. Then the language and the dance is infinite. But when I lived in Ghana, I realized, man, I could spend a whole life, as a kid, 21 or something, I could spend a lifetime trying to be an Ave master drummer, learn just that. And still it wouldn't be me. So that's when I started looking at, well, how is this music organized? What's the underlying elements of it? That's where the studiousness comes in. So yeah, there's the familiar, like Danny, there's the familiarity, but then it's like, talking about Mtume again, when you listen to Miles, those records they did like On the Corner, man, you can hear all kinds of things relative to like There's even a quote. One of the things I love about Bob Thompson, there's a quote in his Embouté design book, you know, the book he did with the women's bark paintings. I mean, who does this, right? It's like there's a quote from Cecil Taylor that says, everything we do can be traced directly back to the Mbuti pygmies, you know, and he dropped that in the middle of this book, and that's it. Music, what people forget is that what we call music is an activity as a projection of consciousness into the end of something about human consciousness that's probably a practice between 150 and 300,000 years old. And you're doing some research about that. So, man, that's music that's been around, people communicating in that vibrational realm, that spiritual vibrational realm, for a couple 100,000 years before any invention of these religions, all the other inventions, city states, all of that stuff. So this is something really deep and profound going on there.
Right, right. And I mean, even just generally the importance of sound, right? Because when we study the origin of the cosmos, it's sound based, right? And so this is all in that realm. And I have so many questions. So but others do as
The answer shorter then, okay.
But I'd like to invite Henry Jewell to reflect with us. Henry, are you there? You're muted. Let's see, Henry.
There he is.
Got it.
There we go.
And the beat goes on. Sound. Oh, this was marvelous, just marvelous. I gotta thank Danny and Adam for giving us those sound bites and sound ideas and concepts, and just incredible. And I think what you're tapping on, what is at the center here is, it goes back to us as sentient beings with the senses that we bring to this world, and that are then shaped culturally by everyone we meet, from our mothers when we're still in their wombs to the time we leave this realm and go to somewhere else. It's about sound. It's about vibration. It's about movement, motion. It's about time. The only thing that was missing through this virtual encounter is taste. You know, I can't taste my computer, but I can touch the screen, and I'm touched by the words and the vibrations that these two wonderful people have shared with us. You know, Bob, I think, first introduced himself to me, or somebody introduced him to me as Bob the Mambo freak. Well, he was a freaking Mambo person. That's what he was. And I think that tells us a lot about where we are today in the way you've been thinking and talking about this work. The flash and the spark of his spirit is with us today and is being channeled through the hearts and minds of all of the folks who are here. And then from that depth of a kind of universal sharing of sensory experience, and then the knowledge and the histories and all of the information that came along with it, was the thing that has taken us to today, and who we are and where we are. And Danny and I and lots of other folks have had this kind of continuing debate and dialogue about, you know, where those major forces and elements came from in Africa. Yes, they may have come empty-handed, but they didn't come empty-headed. And those heads were Congo's heads, and Congo heads, and Mozambican heads, and Angolan heads, and West African heads. They came from all over the continent. And Central Africa, and especially Congo country and their neighbors, had some of the earliest impact and profound impact on the Black Atlantic world. That's for sure. But because they came so early on, other layers were put on top of those foundational ones, added to it, not replacing it, but adding to it in what I think was probably a universal African way of working and thinking and sharing, that is call and response. You know, what I'm hearing in these two presentations are calls and responses, dialogues and improvisations. And to add to that, another call, a recall that Bob O'Meally reminds me about in his recent writing on in some of his latest writings. So it's call and response and recall, and it's exchange of ideas. I was in my notes here, I've got some cosmogramic diagrams on this sheet of paper, and I'm thinking about the 4 moments of the sun and how much it resonates with the Yoruba image of a cosmos, which is a circle with 2 intersecting lines. At the center of those intersecting lines, that's Orita, crossroads, the place where decisions get made, where things happen or don't happen. And how similar those cosmograms are in their various manifestations and how they've been understood and lived by people in Africa and in the diasporas, the multiple diasporas of this globe. And I just want to pick up on one of the things that Adam said right at the end, where he was saying, well, you know, all mandalas, they're not really circles, they're spirals. And that's exactly the point. Circularity is not about closure. Circularity is about ongoingness, you know? Through time, you never come back to that same place. It's always a new place and something new is happening. So, you know, I put together a Yoruba cosmogram from one of my publications, and I looked at it and I said, that's wrong. It shouldn't be a circle. It should be a spiral. Because when the Yorubas understand reincarnation, that soul that comes back, it's a partial soul of an ancestor, but that new soul that comes into the world comes to do something new, not what that ancestor did. It's a spiral. It's onward going. And that's why I love that you call your orchestra Go, because it's about movement. It's about going forward, right?
That's right.
I just want to make one other comment, and I'm going to get off because I want other people to jump in and have their say. This notion of art, it's more than music. Music is one of the arts. What is it? And that, you know, it's a question that Adam wanted to get into. What is music? What is it doing? How does it do it? And why does it do it? Well, music is one of those arts. And as the Yoruba, as I understand what the Yoruba call art, ona, I translate it as evocative form in whatever shape and form it takes, whether a sculpture, a painting, a textile, a word, a song, a dance, a movement, a drum rhythm. All of those are evocative forms. Evocative forms are those forms that humanity has created that take us to a different place, that take us deep and take us far. And if they do that, then we call them art. That's kind of the key thing. And the vibrations, the sounds, and the rhythms that you have shared with us today have taken us to a different place. And the Yoruba have another concept about what they do when they're honoring ancestors or honoring the deities, the various deities. They say, Amashire, Amashire, we are going to make joy. We are going to play. We're going to play seriously, because it's in that playing that we honor, entertain, and uplift those ancestors or deities that are on the path with us, on that journey, on this cosmic path. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Henry. I actually would like to invite Dr. Yvonne Daniel, who during your lecture, Adam, had a question. I also have a question for Danny about defining Widi Mambo, but I'd like also for others to speak. Dr. Daniel, would you like to share your question live?
Good morning from California, all. No, I wasn't expecting to
Come
do
on,
this
Yvonne.
orally.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank both the speakers, especially Danny, for that wild journey across the whole planet with the musics of the Americas and how its roots are all in Central Africa. Anyway, it was wonderful to see all of those places and to recognize what a lot of my research has been about. So that was just filled with loads of examples. I wish we had more time to see each one of them in a little bit deeper fashion.
You only saw half of them too.
I believe you.
I'm sorry.
I know how that is. When you're trying to show things and you get so excited. But anyway, so one of the questions I had, well, the question I put in there with at that moment was, hey, it was for Adam. I'm fascinated. I wish I had been aware of your work way before now. So I hope you'll put in there with the other questions someone had about getting your books, where can they get them? But the mathematics of potential or potentiality or possibilities, I can't remember what you said, but I'm fascinated by the fact that you were using these mandala cosmograms. And I didn't understand as also a musician, how do you play them? What does it look like? What does a score? Is there a way to interpret the score, or does it come into that Western notation system for each musician in the orchestra? And the mandala cosmogram that you showed us, is that the symbol for or the rhythmic organization of what the orchestra does? I just don't know how to envision the score.
Well, those cosmograms, the intervallic cosmograms, are the score. That's the point. It's like the idea of the cosmogram. See, Western notation, it's always taught as some kind of dogma, right? I mean, often, this is how you write music, but reading left to right. But these are notes that have a relationship to them based on psychoacoustic reality. And they all have their own kind of aesthetic intervals. So the musicians can move through them and play them how they want. That's the most aleatory, that's the freest way. In the middle is when I'm conducting my orchestra, I might direct them which part they're going to play, but they still get to interpret it. And the third one, the string quartet that I played, I took it as a composer and I wrote out
Notes.
the notation and Western notation for them. So it can become the material that becomes realized either in a live concert setting or through writing. But the idea is I want the musicians to be able to bring their energy, their vibration, their feeling to it. In organic orchestra, there can be, I've had, drummers from Senegal and Indian musicians and classically trained violinists and so-called jazz players, rock and rollers, theremin. They can all be in there because unlike graphic notation, they activate the cosmogram with their personality of how they do it. And then in the context of the aesthetic, it's a balance of control and making aesthetic decisions and freedom. That's how it always is, So, and also man, Henry, thank you, man. Though, it's like, I always, when I listen to Henry, I said, man, I wish I'd said that, it's like so clear and so, what you were saying, I even wanted to talk about this idea of these talks are so incredible of this idea of a so-called scholar. I mean, Danny's like a great photographer too, and a great oral historian, but also, and then an artist, right? But this currency, I feel like it's a currency as in, money can be a currency that we're passing around with each other, but it's also an electrical current, right? That we're sharing. And like I said, when I say that Danny's been my primary inspiration, I mean, every time I talk to him and learn something, I become inspired. And that's that spark. And Henry said something else very profound that made me think about, music. Music is a limited term. In a way, it's a Greek word and the activity that people participate in that includes what we call music. But music is also interesting because it becomes, Henry said something about becoming. And I feel like we can become music. The process for a musician is you go from, playing music and the idea of play, that idea of that energetic and the joy, playing. Why do we call it playing music? I don't work music, I play music, right? But also being a musician, which is some kind of professional, whatever it is. But then the real deal is being music. And that's for everybody. Being music to me means being in tune with your environment, right? Being in tune primarily with nature, being in harmony with our fellow beings, be they human or otherwise, and being in rhythm, right? Which has to do with health and movement and knowing how to move through. So being music is where it's at, being in tune, being in rhythm, being in harmony. And that's what we aspire to. That's what those great elders, Yusuf, Don, others, I never met John Coltrane or Thelonious Monk, but there are ancestors in a sense of not some kind of literal family lineage, but as somebody who sparks and inspires us, even though they're no longer with us. There was a proverb I learned in Ghana. I can't remember from where, but I'm sure you all heard it. It says, live your life like a future ancestor. So that's the whole thing. We're here to lift each other. Anyway, thank you, Henry, for sharing those beautiful thoughts. And thank you for that question. I hope I addressed it some. The last part is just to say the circles, the rhythm spirals, mandalas, spirals are representations of the rhythm. We don't play from them. I write things down when they got to have it written down, but I'm like, that's the last resort. Me and written music, we have a very uncomfortable relationship, but we manage, as they say.
So if any of the guests here have questions, please, you're more than welcome. Danny, if you have anything else also.
I was going to see if Kenneth wants to answer questions, because I butchered Kenneth's work. When I was talking about Jamaica, that work was coming from Ken. So, Rastafarian music coming out of Buru and Kumina music. So Ken, would you like to say something? Uh-oh.
I could certainly ask Danny a question. Wait.
I think
Right ahead.
I think there was some movement. I heard
Okay.
some.
Yeah, he turned his
Yeah,
mic
yeah,
on.
the mic is on. We are ready.
Uh-oh, he disappeared.
Okay. Oh no, he's here. He's here.
Ken.
Well, Danny, I don't know what Ken you're talking about, but
Oh,
I'm
Ken Nunn. This is Ken Nunn. I'm happy to have him. Ken Nunn, wonderful seeing
Hey,
you.
it's a pleasure to be here. This is so rich, so beautiful. I feel completely out of my space because I'm just a poor old lawyer making that cosmic journey, and I'm not an artist at all. But I've loved everything I've gotten from you guys today. I want to thank you, Annie, and you, Petra, for inviting me to be here and share this space. But I do have one. Actually, I have a comment and a question on Henry Drull. You said that it was a single circularity is about expansion, and that the Kongo was something that was a spiral. And Fukuyama told me precisely that. He said you have to understand that the Kongo is a spiral. So I want to thank you for that. And then I actually had a lot of internet issues, and I kept dropping out, coming back in. So Adam, when you were talking about the triple diminished cosmogram, I missed your explanation for that, and I'd love to hear you say that again. But thank you all so much. It's a pleasure to be a part of this space. Thank you.
Ken, I think we can all deal with another repeat of it too, because there was some discussion we need to have explained again. I think so. You're right. But thank you for joining us too.
I don't think explaining it in a musical technical terms is of particular value, but what I said, what I think is important about it is that I learned it again with the oral tradition. I learned about it from Yusuf Lateef, and he learned it from Dom Bias. And it's a very beautiful and fascinating way of organizing the 12 tones that are used in Western music. And something, a way, Ornette, Eric Dolphy, Coltrane, Yusuf, they were all looking at ways of how to organize intervals and work with intervals as they move past the idea of using the traditional so-called harmonic forms. And it does relate to the idea of the spiral. Western music, one of the reasons McCoy Tyner started working a lot with fourths with Coltrane, or Ornette stopped using a piano altogether. The piano is in fact not in tune with the overtone series. And the overtone series is the fundamental vibrational aspect of what sound is and how we hear it, what we hear acoustically. And the overtone series is not the octave. If you hear C and then you hear the C above it, it's not exactly double. It's a little bit more. It's a spiral. What everybody calls the circle of fifths is the spiral of fifths. It's all spirals. So vibration being, it's so interesting because vibration being the fundamental nature of what is and who we are. I mean, why do we love music? Why does music touch us in this way? Although we can't touch it, it's because it's communicating in vibration of which we ourselves are. We get vibrated, right? So the spiral, the overtone series being itself a spiral, it's the most, there's something very fundamental about it, and I think mystical in some way. That return that's not a return, the return that's an expansion, the expansion of consciousness.
It's funny though, because one of the depictions of the Kongo cosmogram is definitely a spiral. It's not just a cosmogram as a cross; it's also a spiral. It's seen as an equivalent to that too.
Yeah.
Can you have decided to join us, please?
Can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to say thanks to both of you, and one thing that I was thinking about was that early on you mentioned transmission as being a very important part of what we're talking about here. Adam talked about oral tradition and wanting to emphasize transmission. And I think that's important because, to me, it signals something that goes along with being self-taught often, that there is some of the more ineffable qualities of what we're talking about with music. They're very hard to verbalize, of course, but they do get passed on. And so all this talk about mentors is incredibly important. And I think it's so important to be doing this kind of music history, dealing with mentors, because a lot of what gets passed on, again, will only become apparent later after these things are gone over and over and over, and we talk about them and realize. So one thing that Adam mentioned was the connection with AACM, and there's so many connections here that came up during the talk that I didn't know where I could even begin to latch onto it. But the AACM reference was interesting in connection with Nyabingi, which Danny brought up, because I don't know whether Adam had connections with Douglas Ewart, but Douglas,
yeah.
Okay, so when I was living in Chicago about 10, 15 years ago, I got to know Douglas and the Nyabingi choir that he had there. I never knew that there was actually a Nyabingi choir connected with the Velvet Lounge. You mentioned Fred Anderson as being a mentor. All these things are kind of incredible interconnections. And so I went to see and hear the Nyabingi choir at the Velvet Lounge a couple of times in Chicago. And there were all these linkages between different parts of traditions in Chicago, and Nyabingi and Count Ozzy in Jamaica, and Buru, and all of these traditions. So again, there was all kinds of transmission going on that haven't really become part of the documentary record. And occasions like this help to bring it out. And your own career is just full of these. I mean, talking about Big Black, who has really, done enough to bring out the work of Big Black, for instance, and Bahamian connections and all of these things.
Gumbe, yeah,
and Gumbe and all of these things. So thank you and Danny for your continuing work, helping to draw together all these things into a big circle where we can see how all these things are interconnected. And I just wanted to say also, I think maybe the first time I saw you play was at the WOMAD Festival. Were you at the WOMAD 1983?
The original one. Yeah.
The first WOMAD Festival.
Yeah.
Maybe you were there with Don Cherry or something.
I was there with the Mandingo Griot Society.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was wonderful. So keep going.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well,
can you talk about Douglas Ewart a little bit?
Well, Douglas. I met Douglas through the AACM. Leroy Jenkins was a good friend of my high school music teacher. I went to the same high school as George and George Lewis and Ray Anderson, and she was friends with Leroy Jenkins. So they used to bring the musicians into our high school classes. And Douglas came one time with Joseph Jarman and Lester Lashley and who was the dancer's name? And I remember Joseph. He brought they brought all their instruments. They were showing slides, and Douglas brought all this stuff, and Joseph brought all these. We used to bring our lunch to school in paper bags, brown paper bags. So he brought all these paper bags and had all of us high school kids cut out holes in the eyes and wear the paper bags during the concert. That's when I met Douglas. But I got to know Douglas when I started playing with Fred in 76 or 77. He was in the group, the Sextet, at that time. That's how I got to know him. And we've done duet concerts, and I've known him for many, many years. I mean, the beautiful thing, the Nyabingi, the language, see, this is the thing, like Don Cherry said, jazz is the glue. There's something special about this here that has a capacity, right? So all of a sudden when Dizzy brings in, because it's a syncretic music in the first place, because the culture, African American culture, is something distinct and unique from African culture itself, right? I mean, it has this other kind of syncretic quality to it, and the music that arose out of it is so syncretic. Wilbur Ware said that actually the drumming, this is just a random example, that the territory bands of the 1930s, Kansas City, Chicago, right, Memphis, Jay McShann, Don Redman, the rhythm, they would do this. First of all, the rhythm, was based upon buck dancing, which is the root of what Big Black played, the root of bebop. But the drums would always have that boom, 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 boom. He said that was an influence from Native American drumming. And I have to say, nobody can prove it, but we can certainly say, I have not heard that rhythm in Central Africa, that like that, that's an example of it, And then the other part, all of those Tin Pan Alley songs, the song forms that as soon as everybody moved from blues, all those forms were written, by Tin Pan Alley composers, Gershwin is the most famous, but there was, many Ira, what's his name? And that became the format. And that idea of moving from sort of a major with these bridges that had this minor sound. I mean, there's so much syncretic qualities to the music. But it's always, it's just this idea of evolution and pushing the boundaries that I think, and you mentioned mentorship, the oral tradition, this music is being taught in schools now, and I don't know how that's going to work in the long run, because what happens is people gravitate towards the materialism of it, which is the written part and the part that can be replicated. But the real essence of it is something spiritual in the sense that the transmission is creative attitude. It's the way, like I said, the why, the how and the why of how you approach things. I was influenced by the AACM, but I right away I knew I'm not going to play. That's their generation. That's their experience, but what about the creative attitude, the kind of imagination that they're bringing to it, So that was the idea. And Yusuf pointed out for all of us, he's a very important innovator because he was the one who, Dizzy brought Chano Pozo into the mix, but Yusuf, well, I shouldn't say but, and Yusuf opened up the whole thing into what now is called world music, Middle Eastern music, Indian music, making your own instruments, expanding into studying and about everything you can learn about all kinds of music in the world with the core. Africa is the core, So.
If I can just say one more thing, because I think we're running over time already. I just wanted to respond to what Henry Druel said, very important, about Kongo people and others who made the journey here centuries ago, bringing their heads with them, but also something that's come up in today's talks was also bringing their hearts, the importance of heart. And this connects to Nyabingi, which is something I'm working on at the moment, because Nyabingi may be one of the African-based musics that is most explicitly and directly and fundamentally symbolically connected to heartbeats, the heartbeat. But since that's one of the most common metaphors used with drummings, drum, rhythm, drums, heartbeat, the heartbeat of music, African drumming being the heartbeat. That's something I would like to keep on exploring further, because it is something that bears a lot more explanation, and specifically the Congo, the role of Congo-based drumming and rhythmic traditions in transmitting heartbeat feel, into Brazilian, Jamaican, New Orleans, and so many other kinds of music. So that's something I hope you can help to explore.
Could you say a little bit about your work in Jamaica with Fukiao?
Well, speaking of mentors, Fukiao was a very important early one for me, and I happened to be connected to him by Bob Thompson around 1980, I think. And that led to Bob being a mentor for me as well. So Fukiao, for me, opened things wide by confirming without any doubt the Kongo basis of the Kumina music that I had been studying in Jamaica in the 1970s. And I feel great gratitude for being able to collaborate with Fukiao very early on in my career and work on a monograph with him. So I give thanks to those here who have played a role in making Fukiao's work better known, and for keeping him also in the dialogue, over the years.
Thank you, thank you. Adam, the question was, where can people get your books?
Well, I put it in the chat. I have a Bandcamp, metarecords.bandcamp, metarecords@bandcamp.com. That's there. Or you can get them through my website too. There'll be links there. Just the Meta Records website. So they're there. The Sonic Elements book has most of the images we saw were from that book, and there's also, I put in there 21 sort of philosophical ruminations in there, I guess, as well, thoughts. So that's where they are. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for this tremendous salon today. Are there, Danny, both for you, Danny and Adam, anything that you're working on right now that people need to be aware of? And in addition to your Bandcamp page, Adam, is there anywhere people can access more information with regards where you're playing? So to both of you, but Adam, go ahead. And Danny, what's going on also?
Well, my new trio record is coming out in a couple of weeks, so Sunrise. And then I have another one I recorded with some musicians in Istanbul coming out in the fall called Invisible Threads. And working on another book. I'm working on another record, just the usual keep on stepping and staying grateful. So those things. I have a lot of, that video clip I played of Yusuf and there is an Adam Rudolph, YouTube channel that if you want to, there's more than you'll ever want to see or know, but all kinds of concert videos and things like that. So yeah, most of my concerts coming up are not in New York though.
Well, this is, worldwide. So if you have anything.
Oh, that's true too.
Yeah, this is international.
Well, I'm heading it's a detailed thing. I'm heading to Europe in May and then Scandinavia in August and then so on, those things. But it's, yeah.
Thank you. And Danny, anything we need to be aware of in terms?
No, but I'm just working on my archives, which will be put together now. It's like 60 years of photography. So
wow,
we put together for that too. And Ashlyn Diaz, who was one of the people participated, is the archivist who works with me. So, and also, it's just strange, I'm being honored by Columbia on the 8th of April, just for my teaching there. So.
Oh, really?
Wonderful.
Can we find out? Well, we'll find. I want to know about that.
Sure.
All right, wonderful. So just in closing, our next salon number 4, is on April 18th. It's always on a Saturday, 1 to 3 p.m., same time. And it's going to feature Robert O'Mealy, along with Yosvani Terry, who's a Cuban composer and saxophonist. But Bob's talk is titled Before Thompson and After Thompson, which, you know, I can't wait to hear, because he was telling some of the stories of how he met Robert Ferris Thompson in New Haven and what happened. So in any case, and Yosvani Terri's talk is Diasporic Conversations, Arara, Musical Traditions, and the Republic of Benin. And so I just want to let everybody know, we accept donations. We have our merch. I got one of the shirts, which has the Congo cosmogram on the back. Can you see? Can you go? Is that visible?
There you go.
Yeah, which is the logo that we're using for the Institute. That was actually designed by Saki Mafundikwa, who is a Zimbabwean graphic designer and researcher who's going to join us also. But there's some nuances because we put the RFT into all of the various points of the cosmograms and inverted the letters to show the kind of independent thinking that Professor Thompson embodied. So in closing, you can visit our website, www.rftmi.org. You can get our merch, you can donate, and please spread the word. And we look forward to seeing everybody on April 18th for Babo Mili and Yosvani Terry. Thank you so much. Peace and love. Peace and love. Over and out.